Welcome to part 3 of the rig tying series. Today,
it's gonna be top secret.
Secrets unveiled. Just wait. So there was this guy, his name was Earl, and he was actually, I think the story is he was responding to somebody in a surf fishing forum about, new rigs to try, and he posts this rig, and a lot of people don't know about it, but it is a fantastic rig. It's called the Earl Brinn rig. And let me tell you, it is a game changer. So stick around, put this on your watch list. You are not going to want to miss this. It's about to get real. Life for real. Book. Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of actually making this rig.
Okay.
Tell me a little bit about the materials. Are they different? I mean, we've already seen what we've used for the double dropper. We've got the materials for the fishing mortician.
Yep.
So what's different about the Earl Brinn? Is there anything different?
How the rig is made is different, but as far as materials go, if you have a selection of monofilament, let's say from 15 to 50 pounds, however you want to construct your rig, if you have that stuff in your hook selection, like, you're good to go. You can make any one of the rigs that we've made in this video series, and the Earl Brinn rig is no different. It's just made a little bit different, and it's a little more time consuming to make. So those are really it. If you have all the other stuff that you watched our first 2 parts of this video series, if you have all this, the Earl Brinn is just another rig to tie.
Awesome, awesome. So obviously we've talked up the Earl Brinn. We've been very successful using it.
Yes.
What sets this apart from the other 2 that we've already made?
We like to use this as a double dropper rig. So like the fishing mortician rig, we fish it as a single dropper, where the Earl Brinn has the benefits of the fishing mortician rig, but we make it a double dropper rig. So there is some differences between the Earl Brinn rig and the fishing mortician rig, but to me, the real pros of this is the fact that the main body of the rig, you can make it 30 pound, 40 pound, 50 pound mono to really be able to power cast those heavier sinkers. And then you can choose your droppers to whatever size you want. So if you want a 50 pound main body of it and you want to run a 15 pound fluorocarbon dropper off of it, you can do that. I would say the con for this rig is, even when you know how to tie it really good and you've tied it a ton of times like we have to make these rigs almost on a weekly basis, it still takes longer to tie these rigs, where you can tie up 10 double dropper loop rigs compared to 1 Earl Brinn rig.
But if you want to be successful, you got to put in the work.
Yes, so. That's absolutely true. I like this is obviously, we fish this rig a lot. This is probably my favorite rig to fish. I would rather fish this over a double dropper, even though it takes, or a double dropper loop rig, even though it takes more time. I just think, you can customize this one so much. I mean, this is my hands down, or, like the main rig that we use. We use all 3 of them in our rod spread. So if we have 6 rods out, there's double dropper loops with floats, there's fishing mortician rigs, and there's Earl Brinn rigs. So I mean, the combination of all of them to see what works is the best, but just my personal liking, I love the Earl Brinn rig. And
the same as the fishing mortician rig, you're not going to find this in stores.
Nope.
So you're definitely going to have to teach yourself how to make this. And again, we say that we're unveiling secrets, but if you Google it, you can find it. We're just going to show you the breakdown of exactly how it's made, and hopefully, you can add this to your arsenal, and it really will help big time.
Absolutely.
So let's not waste any time. Let's go ahead and get started.
First thing that's nice about this rig too, if you're going to make this, you do not need a rig tying board. However, we still have our rig tying board here, because like we talked about in the part 2 video, the fishing mortician rig, if you haven't seen that, you should watch it. But we also have different lengths on the rig board. So, and we put our momoi, whatever it's called, on the board itself. So we'll get started. So the first thing that we need to do is get our 40 pound mono. And we're just going to do a basic clinch knot once again to tie on our swivel. And to do that, if you haven't watched the other 2 videos and don't know how to tie a clinch knot, you're just wrapping the tag end up around the line, then going back through the circle that it made at the bottom, and then just lubricating it with some spit, which I'm not going to do, but then just pulling it tight, and then you have your knot. Cut the tag end off. And we're going to measure from the snap swivel to about 16 inches. And that's going to be where we're going to tie our first figure 8 knot. So if you haven't done the figure 8 knot before or did not watch the part 2 of the Earl Brinn rig, you should, and then we can go back and go over this again. So make a loop, and then you're gonna kind of wrap around and put the swivel through the loop and then pull it, and that's gonna make the figure 8. And we want to just kind of snug that a little bit so it doesn't impede us from making the second figure 8. So now we're gonna take that first figure 8, edge of the rig board, or if you have a yardstick or a ruler or whatever, put it back to the beginning, and then we're gonna measure out 16 inches again. So once we have that 16 inches, again, same thing, we're going to make a loop, go around and hold it, pass the swivel through. Oops, I don't want to go through all those. It gets a little more challenging here. That's why this rig takes a little bit longer to make. Okay, and now we have our second figure 8. Okay, now I'm going to hold that figure 8, and I go the length of my board here, which is a little over 2 feet, and then I'm going to cut that off.
And don't get discouraged when you're making this rig. It is a little more complicated, but practice makes perfect.
Absolutely.
You will get it, and it's definitely worth it.
On the end part, we have our little snap swivel where we attach our sinker guy sinker to. And same thing, just another clinch knot. So just, this knot's so easy to tie and holds up. You just wrap it up, back through the hole, pinch it, lubricate it with spit, which I'm not doing, and then you just pull it down tight, and then you're just gonna trim your tag end.
So you said lubricate it. I mean, a lot of people, I hope a lot of people are doing this, but what's the main purpose for that?
Well, when you're tightening down a notch, it creates friction. Friction creates heat, and when you have that friction and heat on there, maybe you can see it on this one. You can see the monofilament looks kind of funny a little bit. It'll get wavy. Once you do that, if you don't lubricate it in that friction, you pull it tight really fast,
Yep.
It's going to create friction, and it's just going to weaken the monofilament. Okay, so you always want to lubricate your knots, and you always want to make sure that you really pull it and cinch that knot down tight so it's fully seated on it. So yeah, you don't want to loosen that or compromise the strength of the monofilament when you do it. So right there, I know this is kind of a longer one, but now you have your body of the rig. So you have your upper figure 8, your lower figure 8, and then you have your swivel at the top, and then your snap swivel at the bottom.
It's almost as tall as me.
It is, yeah. Now the fish and mortician rig, obviously it wrapped around the main body, so we needed 2 figure 8 knots to kind of keep the snood from sliding all the way up or all the way down. But this one, it's going to be a little bit different. We still need to make a snood, but it's going to be made a little bit different. So now that we have the main body made, I'm going to go back and I'm going to make sure this doesn't fall like the other one did.
Don't let her get away.
And same thing, just like the fish and mortician rig, I'm just going to take some 20-pound and just cut a section off.
How long is that section?
Let's see, 20 inches.
Okay.
It varies every time. If you want to get down to like minute measurements where like everything is exactly the same, you can do that, but I don't think the fish notice. So the first thing we're going to do, just like the fish and mortician rig, is we're going to snell this on the hook. So again, this is going to, I want to make this one with 2 size 1 hooks. So this would be something that we would use in wintertime to fish for whiting, where we're using a little piece of fish bite and a little piece of clam. So again, to snell the hook, if you've never done it, you want to pass through the eye of the hook, like where the part of the hook is. So go in this way, go through the eye of the hook, and then you just pinch that tag end to the body, and then you're just going to wrap the remaining line down the shank of the hook. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then you make sure you want to pinch that, because if those loops come undone, you're going to need to redo your snell. So once you pinch that, you're going to pass the open end the other way through the eye of the hook and pull it down. And now you have your hook snelled, a nice clean knot, and it's not really even a knot, but that is strong. So snells are really nice. And then I'm just going to clip that tag end off. And we have the hook snelled. For this one, I am just going to use and put a plastic bead on. So sometimes on these rigs, we'll leave them with no beads, no floats, and then sometimes we'll just put a little attractor. So for this one, I'm just gonna put a little orange bead on here. But the thing that you have to remember is before you attach this snood to the main body, you need to put your float or your bead on. You can use a float with this if you want. And sometimes, like when we were fishing down in South Florida where those pesky crabs were bad, we did put floats so that way it just hung off the bottom better to try to keep our bait in the water better. But either way, if you want to use a float or a bead, make sure that you do it first. So I'm just gonna slide this.
Because there's no going back.
Yep, once this is on there, it's on there. It's not like the double dropper rig where you can just undo it off the hook and then change floats, change hooks or whatever. Like this one is permanent. So to get the bead to stay on, I put the bead through. I'm gonna try to stop this hook from stabbing me because it's sharp. And then I just pass it back through the hole again. So what that does, because otherwise it would really, the bead would just kind of go up and down the length of the snood. And now once you have it there and you do that over, that bead is not gonna move at all. So now that's in place. So here's number one done. So we'll set that over there. And this is a double dropper rig, so now we need to make a second one of those. So again, take my line, cut it. Let's see if we were consistent. Nope, that one was 16. Again, take our another number one hook and to watch us snell again through the eye of the hook. Pinch it to the shank. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Pinch it. Then pass the open end back through the eye of the hook coming from the top down. And there's your snell done once again. Super easy to do. We are going to trim the tag end. And now we have our second one, and we need to have two of these because this is a double dropper rig. So now, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you do an excellent snell.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've practiced a lot. Now this is something really important, so please pay attention here. Now we're gonna have to put the line, the little snood we made, through the figure 8 knot, but you always wanna put the line through the figure 8 knot from the top going down, okay? And the top of the rig is the swivel, not the snap swivel. So if you would, please.
And what's the reasoning behind that?
I'll show you when you go down. So now once we have this up here, and I mean you can do this easy, but for the purpose of filming, I'm gonna have Courtney hold this. Now what we're gonna do, and I'm gonna put this down here, is I'm going to, if you see your figure 8 knot, you just are gonna pass this line. If I can get it through here. When you're using clear and clear, it gets a little bit difficult to see where you're passing through because everything is low visibility. So right now you can see I just passed that line through the figure 8, and my hook, if it could point, would be pointing towards the swivel, not the snap swivel where you hook your weight. And the reason for that is I'm just gonna pinch and hold this. When this is done being tied, it's gonna create a bow and it's gonna leave it arc out away from the main body of the line. Okay, if you do it the other way and pass the line up from the bottom to the top, this will sit really close to your main body and then it'll wrap around and twist. Okay, so, all right, I got it. So now we have it through here, we have the line going through the figure 8 line. So what I do now is make sure that stays out of the way. And again, I know this seems like a lot of work and it does take a little while, but once you get the hang of it, it goes very easy. So now I'm gonna slide the hook, and this is just like an eyeball guesstimate. You're not gonna make Earl Brinn rigs with 100% consistency 100% of the time. So now I'm just gonna start my hook there. I'm going to pinch the line in the figure 8 knot, and then all we're gonna do with this tag end line is tie a uni knot. Uni knot is probably one of the most versatile knots. You can use a uni knot to tie a hook to a leader, to join monofilament to braided line. A uni knot, if you know how to tie 3 knots, the uni knot should be one of those knots. So I'm gonna show you how to tie the uni knot real quick. Yeah. So here we have this on here, and the line's just following it down. What you're gonna do is go down and come back and create a loop and pinch with your fingers. So right now you can see my tag end, and you can see the loop here. Now what you're gonna do is just wrap this free line around both the 40-pound piece and the little loop you made with the 20-pound. Okay, and this is really easy to do with one hand. What I do is I just pass it through and back up around, and just with my 2 fingers, I just walk this through the circle around both pieces.
So you're wrapping. Through
the circle around both pieces. And you can see this is just wrapping around both pieces. Okay, I'll do one more. Now, once you have that, you can see there's this loop where you've passed the tag end around both pieces. So now once you have that, what you're going to do, obviously you would want to lubricate this knot still, so you'd want to get some saliva where these wraps are, and you're just going to pull this down and continue to pull, and you can see it wrapping down on itself. And then once you get that all the way, you're just going to pull that, and you can see how it goes over the line. Now the second part, if we go back to our figure 8, now we want to cinch that down a little bit, because the figure 8 is going to jam this part and stop it from going further. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to start pulling this back towards the figure 8 knot. Okay, so you see that going in, you see that going in. You're going to tighten. So now I'm going to pull my main body, the figure 8 knot, as tight as I can. And then I'm going to take my leader part that has my uni knot, and it's just going to jam right up against that figure 8 knot. So hopefully you can see how that looks there. Okay, now we, just like all our other knots, we want to trim the tag end off. So now we have the
Make sure you trim the tag end off and not your main line, because it happens.
Yeah, it does sometimes. When Courtney hears me yell, it's because I've done that.
It's heartbreak.
So now we trim off our tag end, and now you can see that this is the first part. Oops, let me get the hook away from this here. This is the first part, and you see why we put it from the top up, because now you can see it creates that nice little bow and arc. So that's our first dropper. Okay, now we're just going to repeat this process for the second dropper.
Drop it.
Thank you. So again, you always want to thread the line in from the top. So this finger here, this is going towards the swivel at the top. So I want to pass this through, and sometimes this will tighten down a little bit where you might want to open it up where you can pass it through better. So I'm passing that through my figure 8 knot, and then I'm just going to draw this in closer. And again, how much line you leave out here will determine how long your dropper loop is, or how long your snoot or whatever you want to call it is. So right now I'm going to guesstimate it at that. And again, I'm going to run the snood, the 20-pound right along the 40-pound, make a loop and pinch it. So now here we're going to wrap it around both of these 20 and 40-pound to make our uni knot. So again, I just kind of use your fingers. 1, 2, 3, and I'll do 4. And now you can see how that's wrapped around the loop. Now again, we're just going to slowly pull that tight, and we would lubricate this knot with saliva and pull that tight. Then we would lubricate this area because it needs to slide down more. Okay, so we would lubricate this main area, and then we're just sliding the hook down, and it's going to meet up with that figure 8 knot. We want to tighten that figure 8 knot up so it's nice and tight, and then we want to pull this guy so it's up against that figure 8 knot nice and tight. So now you can see that that's a uni knot jammed against a figure 8 knot. We're going to cut our tag end off, and again, make sure it's the right one. And now you can see the knot and how this is connected with our figure 8 knot. And again, if I hold this up from the top down, you see how when you pass it through the right way, it creates that little bow so it's not going to wrap around. Yep. This one's a little longer, so if I hold up both of them, now we can see we have our actual double dropper loop here where we have our top hook and our bottom hook. Again, very versatile. If you want to put floats on here, put floats on here. If you want to leave it bare like the bottom one and just rely on your fish bites for the color, you can do that as well. It's endlessly customizable, but this is my favorite double dropper rig that we use when we're fishing, just because if you have a big, long surf rod like a over the bar 13 that's rated for 5-ounce weight, and you're going to cast a 5-ounce weight and really put some force behind that cast, it's nice to have that main body. Now, one other thing to talk about If a bluefish bites you off, or a bluefish bites you off on this, you can always just tie a hook back onto this if you have enough length left of it, and you can just tie a regular knot, whether it's a uni knot or if you want to tie a clinch knot or whatever. You know, obviously you're not going to be able to snell it, but you can still tie another one on. So you can get maybe 1 or 2 uses out of this. But if they snip it close to the body of it, then it's time to unclip it, have another one ready, and clip it right back on, and get back out there and get fishing.
Yeah,
so
start over. I mean, you could run it as a single if you really wanted to.
Yeah, you could. Absolutely. It looked kind of weird, but again, it would still. We've run it as a single before and still caught fish.
Yes.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
that's pretty much it. It's our Earl Brinn rig.
Yeah, so just keep in mind, Earl is not just another guy in a country song, y'all. Earl made a real solid rig.
Yep.
And it's really fantastic. So I hope it was helpful. I hope you save this to your watch list, because I know it's a little in depth. It's a little bit of a harder rig to make, but it is an absolute game changer.
Yep.
And you will see that when you're out there. Again, practice makes perfect. Just keep trying, and you will get it down. And don't stop fishing. Don't get discouraged. Go out there and catch some fish. It's a lot of fun. Thanks, guys.